Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So, we were discussing in the life of Srima Sharda Devi, which is known as the divine play of Srima Sharda Devi and her divine play. So we were discussing that portion where Rida is trying to remember some incidents which led to Kshudiram's Gaya visit. Why did he visit Gaya? Because uh, during that time, something strange happened. Kshudiram had gone to Anur to visit his daughter Katyayani. Katyayani, as you all know, was Kshudiram's daughter, and he heard the news that she was seriously ill. And then she was about 25 years old at that time, having been married in Anur. So Anur is not very far. So Kshudiram goes there, and looking at her and seeing her behavior, very strangely, he got an intuition that a spirit has possessed her. The possession by spirits often happen, particularly if the mind of the person is a bit weak. So some spirits who have intense desire, some ancestors, maybe relatives or somebody else who is seeking some kind of relief. You see, it's not that we suffer only in the physical body, in the subtle body also. If one has very strong desires and very strong uh, desires to attain something or to achieve something or to enjoy something, then there will be these spirits which are nothing but the Sukshma Sharira, which is also of the nature of the mind. It is the mind, the subtle mind, which constitutes the Sukshma Sharira. So when you say somebody is possessed by the spirit, all it means is that the mind of that departed soul, it doesn't have the soul doesn't have its physical existence, whether it is he or she. It doesn't have a physical existence, but it has a lot of physical desires. So in any case, they feel there are some unfulfilled desire which they want to fulfill. So they catch hold of people normally who are of a weak mind, and the mind of the spirit is powerful enough to influence these weak minds. Normally, they cannot influence strong minds unless the spirit is also very strong. So it is just very scientific to assume that the thought waves of the spirit, when they are intense, they create some impact on weak minds and they start behaving in a peculiar way. So that then we say he or she is possessed by some spirit. Some spirit means some, they do not know. There are various types of spirits depending on the spiritual progress one has made. It's not that any person who passes away, who dies, leaves the gross body, is born immediately. Very often it takes several years to find a suitable body to work out the karma in the physical body. So what do they do? These spirits, these sukshma shariras, which is the part of the universal mind, the universal Ishvara, they somehow manage to have some kind of impact or get hold of some weak mind whom they can easily influence. We see this happening even when we have gross bodies. Certain strong personalities, they are so dominating that their very presence, it overwhelms a weaker mind and they simply obey. So their presence is so powerful, even when we have bodies. So we find the influence of the mind working even when we are in the physical, in our physical bodies. But when the body goes, the mind continues to, though it loses some of its power because the pranas are not there, but it has enough force or enough power to influence weaker minds, certain people. So Katyayani was behaving in a very peculiar ways, and Kshudiram was firmly convinced by looking at her behavior, this is not her normal behavior. Someone who wishes to have certain, who has some unfulfilled desire, is trying to force and make her behave in such a way that those desires are fulfilled through the medium of Katyayani. So after concentrating on God, on Ishvara, he got convinced that a spirit had possessed her. So he focused on his Ishta, but one need not be helpless, because even if one is under the influence of some spirit, the spirit of God is all powerful. So whenever we pray to the Almighty, no matter which spirit comes near, they cannot harm you. So he addressed the spirit in his daughter body. He possessed a lot of spiritual powers by virtue of his practicing truth and a very austere and a very holy life Kshudiram was living. So naturally he had a lot of faith in his Ishta, Raghuvir. So he said, whoever you may be, a god or a demigod or any other spirit, why are you tormenting my daughter this way? Just because she is weak, please leave this place. At this, the spirit became frightened, because the spirit cannot, when there is a very powerful mind or a very powerful personality uh, who has lot of spiritual power, who developed a lot of spiritual power by practicing sadhana, doing japa, the power of the holy name. They say whenever there is some kind of disturbance due to spirits, you have to repeat Ram Nama or any other holy name. You do japa and all the spirits, they become powerless. So the spirit here becomes frightened and timidly answered through Katyayani. It was obvious that it was not she who was speaking. The voice, the mannerisms, everything changed. And then finally, Kshudiram understood what was the motive behind this spirit possessing Katyayani, because he knew that Kshudiram is now going on a pilgrimage to Gaya. So he says, if you promise to perform rites and offer a pinda at Gaya to release me from this present suffering, I promise to leave your daughter right now. I assure you that the moment you leave this house for the purpose of going to Gaya, your daughter will be cured. So he had so much of conviction and power, Kshudiram. He knew that if I agree to this, because this poor spirit, perhaps his relatives, his near and dear ones, that is why they say, so even Swami Vivekananda, when he was in Punjab, some of the Arya Samajis who do not believe in this Pindadana and all the Shraddha and all those things, he challenged Swamiji, said, Vedas do not sanction this, so we don't believe it. Can you prove to me by giving references from the scriptures that the Shraddha, and it is meaningful, why should we do it? It's not that the Shraddha ceremonies or the external rituals that we do are important. It is a mental attitude that accompanies these rituals. They satisfy the spirits, if at all they have some unfulfilled desires. Now, the unfulfilled desires of this spirit who had possessed Katyayani requested, because he knew if Shudiram performs some kind of Pindadana and all the Shraddha Kriyas in Gaya, which is supposed to be a place where most of the people who want to perform some kind of ritual in remembrance, Shraddha in remembrance of their deceased ancestors, they go to Gaya. They say if you go to Gaya and do all these ceremonies or rituals, the fruit or maybe the benefits are more. So the spirit perhaps was ignored by his own relatives, and he was in some kind of mental dissatisfaction. All his unfulfilled desires were rising on the surface, and he just wanted some kind of release. It can be very painful. You have desires, you have the subtle body, but you don't have a gross body to fulfill those desires. That is why they say it can be even while before a person is born, he can be in hell. This is as good as hell, because this kind of torment, when you desire something, but you don't have the means to fulfill it. You don't have the body. You suddenly find that there are so many pending things which you wanted to do. So this soul, at least in the spirit world, he realized that I want to be free. So this desire of for freedom to get mukti can come even in the spirit world, because here we are diverted or distracted by the power of maya, our desires, and we run after so many things. But what happens once we give up the body? Then there is no question of running after anything, gross things, because we don't have a body. But still, the torment still remains, the samskaras are still there. So they want some kind of assurance and some kind of ritual performed by a noble or a holy person, and even a blessing, even the guru's blessings or somebody's blessing, some saint's blessings. That's why these some of the spirits who are good, who have done certain things which bind them to the world, but still they are very keen to be liberated. They normally frequent places of pilgrimage, places like Gaya, where Kshudiram and would have gone to perform the rituals for all his ancestors who had passed away. You can do rituals in the name of anybody and everybody. If at all you remember, if they are connected to you, and even if they are not connected to you, you can, on behalf of other people, whether they are born or not, if they even if they are born or if they are not born, if some they are suffering some kind of torment, so the satisfaction they get by a holy person blessing them or praying to God for them. So that is why the best form of ritual after somebody dies, Shraddha is important, but even in the Shraddha, the element of prayer is very important. The positive vibrations we send, uh, that helps the departed soul to rest in peace. It's not enough if we just hope that the departed soul rests in peace. We have to pray earnestly, especially the close relatives, the near and dear ones, who, at least when the person was alive, expected those people to be kind to him, to help him. So the same desire continues after the body is lost. After they give up the body, they suddenly find the near and dear ones have just going about doing their duties, not even remembering them. In these cases, they possess certain weak minds and request them earnestly, earnestly request these holy people to save them. In fact, Swami Vivekananda also had an experience when he was walking on Marina Beach. A lot of souls were just following him. He could see the subtle bodies. They were saying, "We have been tormented for a long. We just want some kind of release." No, our relatives have not only forgotten us, they have forgotten to even care to do any of our rituals. So you please, on their behalf, if you can do something that will remove our misery, we can be free. So Swamiji, not knowing what to do, he didn't have any food. So he decided to take some sand and mentally offered. He said, please accept this pinda. Pinda, that is, pinda has to be a rice ball, and many things are used, ghee and other things. But if you don't have it, Swamiji said, I don't have this pinda and rice and other things. I'm myself begging for food. But whatever I have, he took some water from the sea and also sand and offered it, and then those souls were freed. That is because of the blessings of the holy souls. So that is one way how the spirits seek some kind of redemption, some kind of freedom from this torment that they are facing. So, moved by the suffering of the spirit, Shudiram replied, very earnestly replied, as soon as possible I shall go to Gaya. Anyway, he was supposed to go to Gaya. So he said, I shall go to Gaya and fulfill your wish. I'll offer Pindadana. But I shall be happy if you will show me a sign that you are definitely released after the Pinda has been offered. So now Shudiram also was anxious, because suppose I offer the Pinda, it's not proper, and he doesn't get some kind of release, then he'll come and possess my daughter again. So the spirit immediately uh, assured him. He said, I assure you that as definite proof of my freedom or deliverance, I shall break the big branch of the yonder margosa tree as I live. So there was a margosa tree in his compound. He said there's a big branch that will mysteriously break. It will it will break. That is an indication that I am free and you have performed your ritual properly, and the Pinda Dana has been successful, and I shall stop troubling your daughter or stop troubling you. So Hriday had said that when this incident happened, uh, Shudiram was now more earnest. He had a desire to go to Gaya to perform rituals for his ancestors, but now because his daughter's health was at stake, she was behaving in a very peculiar way because of the possession of the spirit. So he was very keen to go as quickly as possible. And after some time, the branch of that tree suddenly snapped, the Margosa tree, which the spirit. So he was assured that the spirit has now left, uh, and he will not torment the Katyayani, and she will be okay. From that moment on, Katyayani slowly started and she got fully cured. So we do not know, the biographer says we do not know the validity of Hriday's story, but there is no doubt this may not be the only reason why Kshudiram visited Gaya, but whether Hriday's story is 100% true or not, but we know that the history, the records show that he went to Gaya. So sometime during the winter of 1835, Kshudiram went to Varanasi and also Gaya. He first visited Lord Vishwanath at Varanasi, and then in Chaitra, that is mid-March to mid-April, some date between them, he seems to have gone to Gaya also. It seems he went to Gaya during that auspicious month because he knew that his departed ancestors would obtain boundless satisfaction if the rites were performed, if the rituals or the Shraddha is performed at that time. So, that is what they say. If you go in the month of Chaitra, that is mid-March to mid-April, that is the most suitable time when this place of pilgrimage, both Banaras and more, especially Gaya, because that is the place where everybody believes that their ancestors will get mukti. If at all there is some uh, problem with these ancestors, they are still struggling to get some kind of release. It is by performing the rites for his ancestors, Shudiram thought that I'll satisfy. There are the different rinas. Rina means we owe many things. 5 types of rinas are Rina means some kind of in debt, the debt that we owe to. 5 types of debt are enumerated in our scriptures. There are 5 types of debts. One is first debt is our debts to, of course, ancestors also, which is known as Pitru Runa, the ancestors, all the ancestors by whose efforts we are here in existence. We have got their characteristics, we have got some samskaras from them, we have got our biological body because of these ancestors, the chain of progeny that led to our birth, and we got a chance to get liberation through this body. So we have to be grateful to, we owe a debt to our ancestors that is known as Pitru Runa. Then we have Bhuta Runa. Bhuta Runa means all the things, animals, creatures. We take so many things from nature. So nature expects us to do something for the environment. It's the environment, the prakriti around you. We are breathing air, we are breathing air, we are drinking water, everything is free. We just get all these wonderful things nature provides us with. We get the food. In return, we are supposed to do something for this bhutas also. So that is known as bhuta rina, the debt which we owe to our planet, to our environment, to the whole prakriti. Then we have bhuta rina, pitru runa, then we have the rina which we have to our teachers, the acharyas, from whom we get knowledge. So all the knowledge, all the repository of knowledge which is now with us, somehow we have to remember that somebody has worked hard to acquire that knowledge. the spiritual realization, the spiritual achievements of all these great acharyas and gurus. So that arena also one has to fulfill. So that's how we classify the different readers. So he knew that if, and there is also injunction in the scriptures that if you offer it between March, mid-March and mid-April, that is the month of Chaitra, normally it comes between mid-March and mid-April, people flock to these places, and then because there is a firm belief that if we if the rites are performed with devotion properly according to the scriptures during this time, then the departed ancestors who for whom these rites would not have been performed by their own relatives, we can perform, anybody can perform, uh, so that they get some kind of freedom, they get release from the bondage. Otherwise, they suffer a lot. As we saw, the possessed spirit, he was just requesting, you please do, if you do, I know I'll be free. And true to his word, he left Katyayani and the branch broke just to. So they possess tremendous force over nature. Don't think the spirits are ordinary. In fact, when we say certain things happen, it may be some interference of some spirit, but we don't have to worry much if we have the Lord within, because He is far, far infinitely more powerful than the spirit within. If we pray to Mother, the Divine Mother, it's only the lucky ones. You see, it is only the lucky ones who think of the Mother, the Divine Prakriti. She has hidden herself so well, especially the incarnation, Swami Vivekananda, and also Sri Ramakrishna says, none of you have understood the significance of the Divine Mother. That's why we are taking this class, the divine play of Sri Ma Sharda Devi. There's a lot of literature and people discuss a lot about Sri Ramakrishna and also obviously about Swami Vivekananda, because he moved all over the world. And people get an impression that these two are the main personalities, the Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. But what about Sarada? To such an extent that when we talk about literature, we say Ramakrishna, Vivekananda literature. Does that mean Mother is not there? We don't say Ramakrishna, Sharda, Vivekananda literature. Literature, of course, there are disciples and there are scriptures and other things. So Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, when we say, we have to assume, we have to understand that Ma is included. In fact, she plays a much bigger role than say Ramakrishna as far as spiritual ministration and other things are concerned. So only the few lucky few ones will get an opportunity and will perhaps have a desire to learn or to hear about Srima Sharda Devi. So it is such a rare thing. Even when we took initiation, when we were asked to fulfill certain obligations by filling out a form, it was very clear, especially the disciples of Holy Mother, from whom we had the great fortune to get mantra diksha. In the form, it was very clearly mentioned, have you read the life of Ramakrishna? Everybody obviously had. The people had read. We had also read the gospel, all the young candidates for initiation. Even Swami Vivekananda, almost every youth has read. But when it comes to Mother, unfortunately, people don't give the same kind of attention to the divine life and message of Srima Sharda, which is far, far more important than these two. But she managed to hide herself. That is why Swami Vivekananda is scolding his Guru Bhai. See, you people have not yet understood the significance of Ma Sharda's advent. I know it because I see it myself. I see the greatness of this Holy Mother, how she has hid herself. So only a few lucky ones who are really, really, I should say, blessed, try to understand the impact or try to understand the spiritual significance of her birth, her divine play, her Leela. So here now we of course coming back to Shudiram, because now we see some background the author is giving here about how Sri Ramakrishna's, a brief introduction to Sri Ramakrishna is given, Then we will come to mother's incidents. But these are important because even the ancestry of Sri Ramakrishna was important, because it was Shudiram who was the father-in-law of Sri Ma Sharda Devi. So it is not an ordinary incident that happened. This marriage was a divine marriage. It is so rare to have such a wonderful understanding, spiritual understanding between the husband and wife and the whole family, which was so pious. Of course, there were distant relatives who had their own selfish interests. They were after money, the brothers of Sri Ma Sharda Devi. So that is part of the divine play. All people are not born lucky enough to be born and have reverence and faith in mother who can solve all their problems. She can relieve us from all anxiety. See, so here we see Kshudiram goes trying to get the grace of Vishnu, Gadadhar, who is the presiding deity at Gaya. So he goes there and he performs all his obligations, whatever, to the best of his ability, whatever money he had. He did a very, very sincere uh, ritual, or maybe rituals, so many rituals which he knew had to be done to uh, to deliver these ancestors from to save them, or to maybe to release them from the tribulations and sorrow that they were exhibiting in the spirit world. So that is how it happens. Then he was reflecting upon how God had endowed. He used to believe himself as he was very unworthy. Why does God come and help me now and then? He, in fact, has been born as my son. So he was reflecting how God had endowed a unworthy person like himself, like Shudiram, with the strength to complete that task. In those days, remember, for a poor person who did not have much means, it was so difficult. They had to starve, they had to eat whatever they got through bhiksha when they went for long pilgrimages. It was not so easy. Traveling was also difficult. He, in fact, went to Rameshwaram also. So all these things, pilgrimages he undertook even before Sri Ramakrishna was born. So he was just wondering how God has chosen me, an unworthy person, to so that I can fulfill all the dreams of my departed ancestors, do some kriya at Gaya, which was a big thing in those days. To go to Gaya to perform, most of the people performed the shraddhas in their local villages. But here we see he got this opportunity in a strange manner. So he was very, very, very grateful to Vishnu Gadadhar, and he was praying, and his grateful heart was filled with lot of humility and love for his Ishta. So peace and joy, not only when he was waking up, even he slept wonderfully without any anxiety, was sleeping, and he was experiencing a great bliss for having fulfilled his obligations. One night, even before Sri Ramakrishna was born, he fell asleep and he started dreaming. So he had a very, very powerful dream that was shared by his wife. She had a different dream, she had a different vision, and both of them got indications, got some kind of signs from the mysteriously they were informed that something great is going to happen. Uh, so he himself, when he was offering the pinda, in his dream he saw he is offering pindas to the ancestors at the holy feet of Lord Gadadhar in the temple, in the Gadadhar temple there. Gadadhar is the name of Vishnu. Gadadhar means one who is holding the mace. So one of the names of Vishnu is Gadadhar. So he was very, in his dream he saw his Ishta Gadadhar, and he also saw the holy feet, and he was offering pindas in the dream. Of course, he had gone and done those rituals, but even in the dream he saw the whole thing. And then he saw suddenly these ancestors who, on whose behalf, for whom he was performing this pinda, they somehow seemed to be very luminous, and they were in a celestial plane. Naturally, they are the ancestors of Shudiram, the ancestors of the Lord himself. So they have to be great people. So these luminous celestial forms joyfully accepting the offerings and blessing him. So all his ancestors, he was strangely saw that all his ancestors were blessing him because of the wonderful uh, thing that he did by coming all the way in spite of so much of difficulties, so much of he didn't have enough resources to travel. So taking so much pain by going by foot most of the time to reach Gaya and then perform all these things, they were very, very pleased. These luminous celestial bodies. So some of them he could recognize maybe is near and dear, but there are many ancestors whom he might not have seen. Those days photographs. So he saw most of his ancestors there who had attained to a certain level. They were joyfully accepting whatever offerings and they were blessing him. So it is a question of give and take. Whenever we offer something to the Lord, we expect that in return, very graciously, of course, the value of what we offer to the Lord and what He does to us, there's a huge difference. The Lord always is bountiful, His nature is bountiful. He can give anything, everything to us. But then we, from our own part, on our own part, we also have to make certain offerings the way scriptures have prescribed. So these people were accepting whatever little he was offering, in spite of his poverty, in spite of his difficulties in his house. They were very pleased with his devotion, and he began to weep. And he saw they were all blessing him, and he began to weep, bowing down to each one of these spirits or the deities, or some vision he had in Raghunath or this Gaya Gadadhar temple, that he was overwhelmed with devotion and he began to weep and bow down to each one of them in the dream, of course, touching their feet. In the next moment, he saw the temple was filled, the whole temple was filled with a divine effulgence. Initially, he saw them luminous, and then he went on worshipping and saluting his ancestors and bowing down and even touching their feet. So powerful was that dream. And all these things are happening in the dream. In the very next moment, the temple was filled with a divine effulgence. So he saw his ancestors standing on both sides of the shrine, the Gadadhar shrine, in a very reverential attitude with folded hands, praying to a luminous person seated on very graciously on a beautiful throne. He saw, this is the vision he saw in a dream, that my ancestors are all standing in a queue on both sides, and they are just waiting with a very reverential attitude with folded hands and playing and praying to a luminous person who was graciously sitting on a beautiful throne. And that was Gadadhar. So he was green as a blade of new grass. That is, they also say, though it's a myth, but still we accept it, that just as Krishna was dark and dark blue, it was Rama who was green. So Vishnu being the Rama, and both Rama and Krishna and Ramakrishna being the incarnations of Vishnu, incarnations of the Ishvara, who's the preserver of this universe. The creator is Brahma, the destroyer is Shiva, but the preserver, the mainstay of our life is Vishnu. So this Vishnu who has taken the role of maintaining this universe, maintaining an order in this universe. So he was looking, and that he had a green color which reminded him of Rama, his own Ishta, Raghuvira. Raghuvira means he is the he's in the Salagrama stone they worship Rama and call him Raghuvira. So he might have seen his own Ishta when he saw a green figure, green colored, green skin figure, like Rama is described like that. So with that divine effulgence, this person was seated, and uh, in his ancestors who had departed, for whom he did all the Shraddha, they all went and bowed down before him. They thought, how gracious we are, that because of the penance of, because of the hard work and the austerity and the simple faith of Kshudiram, they all got liberation. They all were, as it were, free from the free from the subtle world which was binding them and making their life miserable. Anyway, the Shudiram was surprised to see this person sitting on the throne, that is Gadadhar Vishnu, and he was looking at Shudiram very affectionately, full of love. Smiling, the effulgent one beckoned Shudiram to draw near. He called him. He was surprised that he have not only had a vision, but the Lord is calling him. Like an machine, he walked towards the effulgent one. He was totally lost in the vision of Sri Krishna, Sri Rama, his ideal, that is his Ishta, whom he was worshipping in the Salagrama for a very long time now. So he could see his Ishta, and then the Ishta himself was calling him. He was beckoning Shudiram to draw near, to come near. And like a machine, like a piece of iron is attracted by the magnet, he started walking towards in the dream. All this thing is happening in the dream. So Shudiram in the dream, when he saw this, the Gadadhar Vishnu is seated on a throne and his ancestors are worshipping, he also went and did Sashtang Pranams. And the effulgent one, I mean, whoever that figure was very pleased and spoke the following words to him in a very sweet and melodious voice. He said, Shudiram, I am very pleased with your sincere devotion. I shall incarnate myself as your son and accept the loving service you offer me in your cottage. So Shudiram was surprised to see this wonderful dream where the Lord is expressing his, he is so pleased with his service that he said, I shall incarnate, I shall myself voluntarily come and be born. Vishnu himself will come and be born as his loving son, and just to accept the loving service, the seva you offer me in your cottage. Me means here it is Raghuveer. So he was doing very diligently all the puja and the other rituals, but at the same time he is uh, amazed to hear that this spirit or whatever it is, he seems to be a very noble spirit, and he exclaims, or he is surprised to see that uh, the Lord was so pleased with his service and he had agreed to be born as Sri Ramakrishna, as his son. Listening to this amazing one, this is the divine birth of Sri Ramakrishna. We'll also see how the divine birth of Ma Sharda Devi also is being expressed so beautifully in this book, the divine play of Sri Ma Sharda Devi. Listening to these words, the wonderful words, Shudiram's joy, he was so joyful, so happy that in the very next moment, suddenly he realized, I am very happy that the Lord will come to my house, but we don't even have any place, or we could not feed or shelter the Lord if he decides to come. We ourselves are struggling to get food. So how can we offer proper bhoga or do any kind of service to the Lord if he come, as he said, he will come and stay. And not only come and stay, but also as the son of Shudiram. Sri Ramakrishna was not yet born. So naturally, to look after somebody who has been born by this divine will, by the grace of the divine reality, which is Vishnu Gadadhar, where people go in large numbers, in just like Tirupati, they also go, and other places like Prayagraj, Banaras, and Gaya are the places where you normally, whenever you get a chance, nowadays it is very easy to go, but in those days, those who went were really considered to be brave, and they normally went when they were quite old. So many times it so happened that they just passed away on the way, on the road, or maybe while they reached the destination. So it was a very difficult pilgrimage to undertake, but Sri Ramakrishna is very happy. Not Sri Ramakrishna, Kshudiram is very happy that a child will be born, the Lord himself will be born as his child. And he heard this. After that vision, he was totally you can say, totally surprised, and he was worrying. How can don't have means, say uh, the divine himself, if he comes, how much service I should be doing, but I am myself poor. So will he accept? But he said, don't worry, I'll whatever you offer me, I shall be very happily, gladly accept it. So listening to these amazing words, Shudiram in the dream, of course, his joy knew no bounds. He was so joyful and so exalted mood that in the very next moment he understood that I am a poor person. How can I serve such an exalt? So he did not lose his presence of mind. So with lot of sadness, he immediately told him. He was full of joy because of this promise, but at the same time, he understood that if I don't serve the Lord properly, then I will be doomed. I should be glad that if he's born, but that doesn't mean that I can be. So he was crying and he says, I'm not deserving this favor. There's so many rich people, they will at least, Mathur Babu was there. There were other people who looked after Sri Ramakrishna, looked after his material needs. But of course, later on, even after Mathur's passing away, Thakur again resumed. He was never attached to all these things. Anyway, but Shudiram was very happy, and he was more happy that they all the Lord himself said, don't worry whether you deserve or not. It is more than enough that you have blessed me by graciously revealing yourself and wishing to be born as my son. Said, I don't know, it is more than, I don't seek any other blessings. Shudiram is telling the Lord, he is praying in the dream, that if you graciously reveal yourself, your true nature, which is the target we have set for ourselves. We have to know the true nature of our Ishta, true nature of Ma Sharda Devi. What do you mean that Prakriti has been embodied? Parama Prakriti we call her. What is this Parama Prakriti? To understand the philosophy of Vedanta, both the theistic, the uh, semi-theistic, and the non-theistic or atheistic, as we can say. See, these are all different paths. And as we know, Sri Ramakrishna later on confirmed that all the paths, no matter which path you practice, will reach the truth or reality of the goal. So he is saying, by graciously accepting that you yourself will be born, what more privilege can we ask for? If you truly would be my son, how could I, a poor man, be able to serve you? The divine being was even more pleased upon Shudiram's plaintive and humble words and said, don't be afraid, Shudiram. Whatever you offer, I shall accept with satisfaction. You don't have to do elaborate puja, whatever little water and some tulsi leaves, whatever you offer, I'll accept. So I'll accept with satisfaction. You don't have to worry on that account that you have to spend a lot of money which you don't have. So don't raise any objections to the fulfillment of my wish. So the spirit is saying that he can, by his force, remove the spirit by virtue of his spiritual practices. But this divine spirit is telling him, don't do that. Just try to uh, continue. So Shudiram became totally speechless. Conflicting emotions of joy and sorrow flowed with such a force. He was sorrowful because he thought, suddenly the Lord comes to my house. If I can't serve him, give him the proper uh, offering, then it will be difficult. But at the same time, he was happy that Sri Ramakrishna himself is blessing his house. Anyway, uh, not Sri Ramakrishna, the Gadadhar, Vishnu Gadadhar is himself, the Lord himself is blessing his, by his divine presence coming in his form and also blessing Kshudiram and his family. So at that moment, when he was expressing that gratefulness with lot of joy, at the same time sorrow that he will not be able to serve properly, but after receiving the assurance, he suddenly woke up and he knew these are the dream which comes early in the morning are normally are supposed to be taken very seriously. So this was when his sleep broke, maybe early in the morning. So he was now planning how to, uh, I mean, make arrangements. If the child is born, if the Lord himself comes, then how can I best serve him? because such a great privilege the Lord has given me. So that is saying that his sleep broke. Then next day, we'll see, for a long time after he awoke, the biographer says, Shudiram did not recognize where he was. He was as it were transported to a different plane. Such visions, no, normally people don't get. He got a very elaborate dream. He could see his ancestors. He could see by the fruits of the worship that he had done. All of them got the benefit. So mm, but that he was so overwhelmed that he continued to sleep, did not get up even uh, after uh, after he recognized that where he was. He did not even know his location, because when you wake up, many times it happens, you suddenly don't remember where you had slept. Some part of the memory goes away. So, but the dream was so vivid that when he finally regained consciousness of the external world very slowly, Thakur had blessed him by showing the internal world. The internal world is what we are struggling to see. By the grace of the Lord, Khudiram was able to see, and not only see the whole dream, but he could also, mm, uh, I mean, after waking up, he was convinced that a divine dream, especially early in the morning, can never be false. A great soul would definitely be born into his home. Although he was advanced in age, he was destined to again see the face of a newborn son. So, whatever may be his age, but because he was very, uh, and this was a divine birth, of course, it was not a physical birth. So, when the Lord himself comes and decides to incarnate, who can stop? So, anyway, but he did not want to, he was worried that I am already old. Suppose the child is born and I pass away, I don't live long enough to enjoy his company. So he was earnestly praying that also. Whoever is born, O Lord, see that I serve you properly, and may our. So he was praying in his own way. But he had decided when he went back, he will not disclose this wonderful dream to anyone until it proved to be true. So he wanted to make sure it's not very far. As soon as I reach, I need not disclose it. If I get a hint that the dream that I had was, um, I mean, was so true, so real, that the Lord himself will be born, and the Lord has to give him some kind of hint that he is born. Otherwise, when you see, certain unique things happened when he was born, but still he was born just as any other human being would have been born. So he was afraid that at this age, even though the Lord had promised that he'll be born soon, suppose I don't live long enough to see my face of a newborn son, especially the Lord himself. What a great fortune I have. So he decided not to disclose this dream, because he had a fear that if he disclosed the dream, it may not come untrue. That was his superstition. So he left, few days later, he left Gaya and returned to Kamarpukur in April of 1835. So somewhere around mid-March or late March, he has gone there. So he left for Gaya and he returned back in April, maybe late April, we do not know, in 1835. This is what was recorded. So, but some people in some biographies, there are two versions. Some say that Shudiram had left Derepur when he had to leave his ancestral village, come to Kamarpukur. He had already decided to go to holy places like Vrindavan, Ayodhya, Varanasi. Afterwards, his son and daughter were born. Remembering his pilgrimage, he named them Ram Kumar and Katyayani. During his last pilgrimage, he visited only Gaya. So this is how some biographers say, and it may be true also. He might have visited only Gaya after that spirit came and possessed his daughter. So I think he had just wanted to, very keen to go in the Gaya to offer the pinda, as the spirit had told him. Please do it so that I will not anymore. That is one desire which was unfulfilled. Fortunately, I got an opportunity. See, they know the divine spirits who are hovering around, even though they may be uh, spiritually evolved, they have certain desires, certain hankering to meet holy people, to have satsanga. So naturally, though their lifespan will be less, whether they will get mukti or not, whether they will get this true freedom, everybody in India seems to have that desire. Ultimately, sooner or later, moksha will become our goal. So, uh, now simultaneously, though he did not tell anybody um, about his visions he had in Gaya, but the there is a small explanation is necessary to see if there is some scriptural testimony regards the parents' spiritual experiences during the advent of an avatara. Like uh, Jesus was born to a carpenter, and uh, his mother Mary. So we know that the divine birth of incarnation, there is a great transformation in the people around him. So what is the connection? What are the indications that a great soul is born? Is there any scriptural testimony? So these are the things we need to discuss, and we will slowly discuss it in the next class. But simultaneously, the wife of Kshudiram, Chandramani Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's mother, also had similar dreams before his birth, and most of them, these dreams coincided. So it doubly uh, uh, the faith in the Lord and the idea that he will incarnate, both are almost similar dreams. Of course, he had a dream in Gaya. She was at home when Khudiram's wife Chandra Devi must have seen some dream. So they have this, the scriptural testimony also the author has given here, just to show that the parents and the relatives who claim that they had these kinds of premonition is, of course, when you have a premonition that you will die. But similarly, you also have good uh, tidings when they come. You see, there are these spiritual experiences. You can't say that there is no connection between dreams. For most people, dreams may not be connected to their waking life. Things may not happen. But when such pure people, pure-hearted people, sadhakas who had so much faith in the Lord, when they have, then you will find there is some kind of truth in this mysticism. So all the religious books of all the prophets, they record that when the great saviors of the Lord are born, their parents, whoever they may be, whether it is Jesus, Buddha, their parents experience, most of them, extraordinary spiritual power, and also the visions and fervor. So they seem to be possessed. So possessed by this divine spirit and the divine avatara. So this fact has been proved. If we just go through the read about the true nature of the parents of these incarnations, like Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, and Shankara, and also Chaitanya. So these persons are worshipped in a very haphazard way. We worship. If you go to any shrine, you will find with all so many gods and goddesses in a corner you put. But here you will see the worship which Shudiram was doing. There was no show about it. He did what he wanted to do with very simple means. He used to do it according to the scriptural injunction. So he used to do it with so much of love and reverence. So two instances the author is giving to recall. I mean, he is recalling two, three to illustrate this truth, that uh, there is some kind of connection or some kind of proof that uh, is shown. The parents of all the great incarnations of prophets like Buddha, everybody had some kind of divine vision or divine experience before the child was born. So we will discuss it, how in Ramayana the mothers of Ramchandra and his three half brothers conceived just by eating rice pudding left over from a very famous sacrifice. So even such trivial things can uh, help you to make spiritual or any other progress. So the power behind Srima Sharda Devi, the Parama Prakriti as she is known, has to be worshipped in some way or the other. Because when we worship the Lord with the idea that they through their infinite grace, they will introduce us. It's not that we go after these things. It is very rare. Sometimes people are just pushed, and they by God's great wonderful grace, they develop a love for mother, try to understand what this Parama Prakriti is and how she can influence our lives, our experiences, how we can change our jati, ayu and bhoga. As we saw in Rajoga says, the jati, the species in which we are born, the span of our life and the experiences, these can be transformed. So there is a concept known as a free will. Are we free to mold our own destiny? If there is free will, then everything would have happened according to our whims and fancies. But will is free in a way. We'll discuss about the free will and uh, the will of the Lord in some other occasion. But here we'll find that in Ramayana and Krishna also, if you see in the in the next Dwapar and the Treta Yuga, you will find different incarnations came in Buddha where their parents had some special quality or they did some special actions, as it were, to have these great prophets, or the you can say avataras, their respective mothers. So now we will see if there are some questions. There are some 5 questions. I'll answer that and we'll continue in the next alternate day. So there are many questions. How long does it take for a departed soul to be reborn? What is the point of doing pindadan if the soul has been reborn? Does different people who have passed away reborn at different time lapse? Is the time that we know in the earth very different from the outer world? Means the Kal and the Mahakal concept? No, Mahakal is something different. It is the great time which is known as the a state beyond time. We are all in time. They say the time that we spend, it's our 1 year is equivalent to 1 day of the spirit. So they live for a long time, and we don't have to worry that if a departed soul has already taken birth, if you offer pinda in his name, nothing we are going to lose. We lose so many things. Things are overflowing. When we eat, we throw away a lot of food. We don't care. Why bother if a few pindas are spent? We buy so many sweets. We celebrate our festivals. There is so much of waste. We don't use things. If we are not going to use it, what is the use of buying all these things? There are 90% of the things in our home we buy, but we don't spend. So there's no harm in offering. When it comes to pinda, why should we be uh, uh, I mean, why should we stop ourselves, or why be whether they are born or not? Anything that you do unselfishly for the sake of others, that will help not only them but also you. Shiva Gyane, Jiv Seva, trying to see the Lord in them. It's the Lord whom we are serving. It's not the ancestors alone, but they are part of the Lord. They are waiting. There are certain problems which they might be facing, and if we can do something for them in a subtle way by offering this pinda, then we should not bother whether we are offering it for people who are alive, or in the subtle body, or have already taken birth. In any case, if we do more of these rituals, nothing is going to be lost. Second, how is it that we hear about possession by spirit in horror movies and in villages? How come we do not hear the episodes of possession in the cities? Are they are there not many weak minds in big cities and modern world whom the spirits? I There is no reason why in rural areas the people are much more uh, simple. They are not so complicated. Here, perhaps this is my, maybe it is some kind of, in a humorous way, I would like to say that the cities, these things are not very common because our city minds are very complex. So the poor spirit will repent that he would prefer innocent and simple people who can express themselves. You see, Katyayani got possessed, and she found a solution for that spirit. It's not that the spirits have come to harm Katyayani. They find that here is a liberal person. When we want some help, we don't go to a clever and a cunning person. He will ask something. So perhaps our city people are so business minded. The spirit knows that this is not the right mind to enter. These people are so complicated. I will lose my peace of mind by. So maybe that is one of the reasons why we don't hear of so many things. Whereas in the villages, in the rural areas, we'll find people are much more simple, much more, though there will be weak people even in the cities, but still in the cities, unfortunately, the minds are extremely complex, extremely crooked. So the spirits find it difficult. They perhaps there's some allergy for such people. We do not know. But yes, what you said is correct. We don't see this. Uh, so there's no question of superstition. It's a simple scientific theory that our minds, if they're influenced by people who are having bodies, definitely when the minds don't die, if we believe that the Sukshma Sharira exists, they exist, because thoughts are things, they do not vanish. They are Sukshma, but they have power, they have some kind of existence. So when they are there, they are intimately connected with the other minds. Now, how do we dream? In our dream minds are also connected. We do not know the connection as we know when we wake up, but the influences of when we are still aware, when we are totally aware of the things around us, even then we get influenced by powerful people. That is how the spirits work. Now, uh, if the baby dies, does the baby grow up in the spirit world? If the baby dies, yes, definitely, definitely. Whatever little karma the baby had to fulfill, that was fulfilled in a particular body, but then they will be living. Every person who dies has to, for some time, or we do not know how long, there's no guarantee. It all depends on the karma or the samskaras which are there in the karmashaya. Our jati, our ayu, our bhoga, the experiences, for that to fructify, we have to take certain particular bodies depending on our karma. So whether a baby or an adult person dies, normally they have to wait unless they find the body immediately and they are born very quickly. So there's no such rule. It's all a very complex thing. Anyway, so whether a baby dies or anybody dies, spirit world is a transitory world. If you see all the scriptures, they say it's like a waiting zone. You just wait till you are allowed to uh, uh, till you have the luxury of getting a body. That's why Shankaracharya says, when you have the body, see that you make full use of it. Then you will hanker. Then you don't know how long you have to wait to get another body to work out your karma. It's very, very difficult to work out our karma in a subtle space, because we need to then, like these spirits, they work out a little karma. Maybe they add a lot to their karma if they harm the person whom they possess. So they are so evil, these evil spirits, that they continue to trouble people even after their death. Their minds are so full of anger, jealousy, hatred. So naturally, when they die, what is going to happen? Those vibrations will impact a lot of people. That is why people go to the shrines, go to places where holy people have meditated for a long time. The vibrations itself changes in such places, but haunted places where a lot of deaths have happened, so many criminal acts have happened. Naturally, those places are likely to have uh, these kinds of evil spirits, and anybody who goes there will be affected. We hear so many stories. Of course, movies, they exaggerate these things, but definitely it is a truth. There's a lot of science to that. Otherwise, nobody, why would Swamiji say that one has to do Shraddha? Is it true that Swami Vivekananda is one of the rishis from the Sapta Rishi Mandal? Did Swami Vivekananda's mother had any dream? Sri Ramakrishna's father had, sorry, Swami Vivekananda's father or mother did not have, but Swamiji, when he was just before he was born, Sri Ramakrishna had. And when Sri Ramakrishna had that dream even before Swamiji was born, that a rishi is coming to come down. It was he who pointed out. And that memory, of course, came back to Swamiji. And he said, when you regain that memory of the Saptarishi, you'll go back to that state. You will not stay in this world any longer. But Sri Ramakrishna covered it with some ignorance so that he could do some work. Otherwise, if he knew who he was, Sri Ramakrishna had warned him, don't tell, remind him of who he was. If he meditates on that, he may simply leave the body. So, if the work is to be done, we have to avoid referring to his divine origin, the divine birth that he had. That's what Swamiji Sri Ramakrishna said. Now, is it counted in a salaried job, thinking of Shiva while doing Jiva Seva? Does the thought count more than whether it is a paid or unpaid task? It's not a question of paid or unpaid task. You are paid because you have to earn a living. It has nothing to do. But the attitude with which you do is very important. That is why when we, Swami Sharadananji once used to, Premananji, sorry, Swami Premananji was the manager of Belur Math, used to ask brahmacharis and swamis when they went for relief work, they used to distribute a lot. So, to the underprivileged people, to the flood affected people, and some other cyclone and other things, they used to carry food and give and come back. So, naturally, when they came back, Baburam Maharaj would ask them, what have you given? So they would say, we gave so much of tons of rice to so many families. He said, I'm not asking that. These are all material things. What did you give from your side? These things were donated by some people. You just took it and gave it. Similarly, with the salaried job, of course, we do work, but in return, we get some material benefits. So that has nothing to do. And some people do, like some of the monks, they don't have a salary, but they still have to run institutions. They have to do, say, various service activities. So the activities can be same, whether you are having a salaried job or a unsalaried job. As long as we live, we can do work in the spirit of service of God in man. Yes. So I'll take leave now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Oh, there is one more question. Is faith something that comes with birth by primary education? Can someone who was raised not to believe suddenly change and have faith? As I told you, it is very clear, it doesn't matter at all who your biological parents. There may be little in nurture and nature around you that may impact your life, but the samskaras with which you are born uh, will definitely come to the front. You are born with your own karma, own baggage of karma. So we cannot say that by training, good training, if some people are really good in their childhood, they have had good parents, but somehow when they go to some university or some other atmosphere, suddenly the old samskaras become alive and they get spoiled. Then you understand, then you realize how we have spent so much time in training this child and we took so much of precaution not to expose him to all these things. How could he grow wicked? So the same parents would have given the same training to two children, and one becomes evil, one becomes good. So these things we observe. So we can't blame anybody how it happens and all those things. We come with our own baggage of karma, and we unfold ourselves, our personalities, based on what we have inherited ourselves by our own actions. We can undo them or we can add more. That is in our hands. So when we say whether we have a free will, yes, we have a free will, as long as we decide to change the status quo. We have been born with so many samskaras, but we will decide that we will not succumb to our samskaras. They may be bad for some reason, but at least let us take a resolution and go on doing good samskaras till one day we will neutralize all the bad samskaras and then start doing good. So I hope I have answered all the questions. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.